Boston, Crockett's Victory Garden.
Welcome to Crockett's Victory Garden. I'm Jim Crockett. You know, I got to thinking the other day that everyone doesn't have as much garden space as I do. Maybe you live in an apartment or a condominium and you have no garden space. But suppose you do have a patio or a balcony. Let me show you what kind of flowers and vegetables you can grow in just such a setting. For example, talk just about flowers for a minute. Here's an ivy geranium, 2 years old in the same flower pot. We brought it in during the winter so that it wouldn't freeze. But look at all of those flowers, just as happy as can be. Bright sunshine, fresh air for that kind of a plant, and it's happy. Now we're going to also grow some vegetables. And I resurrected an old window box from home, put some staples along in here about 6 or 8 inches apart, on which I put some rather woolly cotton thread, because I'm going to grow some scarlet runner beans here. These will climb clear to the roof of this tool house. They will bear bright red flowers. The pods are delicious when they're young. The mature beans can be used as though they were shell beans. Now I'm going to put in a couple of beans for every plant, which I eventually will save here. Simply push them in the ground with your finger, roughly an inch deep is just fine. And they'll come up in a matter of 5 or 6 days, and we'll choose the better plant for each of these strings. And up they'll go, clear to the roof. We'll have scarlet runner beans, one way to do. Now let's talk about another vegetable. Let's begin first with a container. This is just a plain plastic container, sometimes called a nursery can. It's about 5-gallon capacity. Last summer in this can we grew some beautiful peppers. So I'm growing some more peppers. This is a variety called Earliest Red Sweet. 3 plants in here. They'll get about 18 inches tall. Each plant will bear at least 5 or 6 delicious bell peppers. Then we come to another one, an eggplant. Also will do very well in a container. Now let me mention in this type of container, and all of those in container gardening, don't put any crockery or pebbles and such in the bottom. Do have drainage holes, but don't put any extra drainage in, because the real problem in container gardening is applying enough water. The sunshine heats up these containers, the wind dries them out. I find it may be necessary to water more than once a day during the hot part of the summer. This plant will grow 2 feet tall and have anywhere from 4, I hope we have more, maybe 10 or more beautiful eggplants on it. This container is very plebeian sort of a thing, used to hold potato chips. Now we're going to grow 3 nice plants of a head lettuce. Now, if you want to grow a flower garden, there is nothing going to give you more pleasure than a plain, ordinary geranium. And notice the portability of this garden. Suppose you have a garden on a balcony and those big thunderclouds are coming along. You can just slip them inside your house until the storm is past. Or I even know people who take their gardens, portable gardens, in the back of the station wagon when they go on vacation. Well, I want to come over here and plant a tomato plant for you. Again, beginning with plain, ordinary tin can with some holes in the bottom for drainage. Talk first about the soil. Last year we grew plants in this type of a container using what is called a soilless soil mix, half vermiculite and half peat moss. I found out that the plants sort of ran out of steam at the latter end of the summer, especially as regards trace elements, discoloration of the foliage that I didn't like. So this year, I have a mixture of 1/3 garden loam, 1/3 peat moss, and 1/3 compost. Now, if you have a patio garden and don't have access to these materials, buy just a plain, ordinary potting soil, such as you'd use for houseplants. Well, there's no great trick on this. I'm going to put in here a tomato variety. This one is called Sigma Bush. It's a kind of a strange name. This is a variety which we got from England this spring. I've never grown it before, but I am a great believer in trying something new each year. You see the nice root system on here? Simply slip this into the top. This is supposed to be a cherry type of tomato. Will come up and cascade, and we'll have tomatoes all summer long from this one little plant. Again, it's something that you can pick up and carry around. You can even grow a taller tomato. If you want one of the others, put a stake and grow them up a stake. I guess the most important thing I want to show you on container gardening is what I call my tower garden. And this is something which we made up yesterday just for this occasion. Now, the first tower garden which I saw was about 12 years ago when there was an international horticultural exhibit in Vienna. Now, many of the European gardeners are light years ahead of us when it comes to imaginative ways of using plants. Let me describe what this is made of. A piece of fencing, roughly 4 feet long, which is made of galvanized welded wire. The mesh is about 2 inches by 4 inches. Now, the liner for this is a type of water-resistant paper called sisal craft. Then we filled it full of soil and simply cut holes in the sides and plugged in our plants. A great variety. We have here a rose geranium. If you're making apple jelly, you might like to put one of these rose geranium leaves in the top of it. Other geraniums for color, lettuce. We have parsley, various kind of herbs around there. A tomato is going to cascade out of the top, some lettuce up here, and flowers. Now, right in the center here, on this one space that I saved, I'm going to plug in another geranium. A petunia, excuse me. We'll put the petunia right in here. Now, there's no great trick if your plants are small. Simply cut out a little situation like that. Now, I've found that a label is a pretty good way to poke a hole in here. Dig out a little hole to receive those roots. That soil, by the way, is the same kind of soil that I have for my other container plants, with the exception that, and also has that same long-lasting fertilizer, which I use in all of these containers. What I used in this was called Osmocote. It's a little granular material, looks like little bubbles. And now I'm going to show you this also. It doesn't hurt to pare down this ball of soil, even removing some of the roots. This plant is young and healthy, can survive this kind of treatment very nicely. Now, if it were smaller, I wouldn't have to do it, but don't be afraid to treat your plant this way. We'll see if we can get that to a size that will slip right in this hole like that. Now, you see, we're going to have in here a series of blue petunias and the dark green parsley and the orange marigolds. We'll have a nice garden here all summer long. This is something which, if you do have it on a dolly, you can turn it so that all of the plants get a sunny exposure, or if you are not able to turn it, maybe that you would plant a shade-loving plant on the other side of it. Well, now, today, I want to show you around the garden. A lot of things have been happening. I'm going to make a composter. I've had so many questions on that score, and I'm going to plant a rhododendron. But first of all, let's start on what I call the grand rounds. Some of the results are good, some are not so good. Let me begin with a not so good one. I have 3 kinds of radishes planted in here, planted very, very early. And I have experienced the same kind of thing which many gardeners have. We're beginning to get on some of these roots some of the root maggot. Now, we did use diazinon, probably not enough, but I think the real key of it is the very early planted radishes are more susceptible to root maggot than some planted now. So if I were you, I'd plant more radishes, but put some diazin on. I don't think you'll have the trouble with your second or third planting that you had with the early one. Now, early on this spring, we found that the leaf miners were getting at our spinach. Now, this is one of the old leaves on the spinach, and perhaps you can see these little tunnels that the leaf miner made in the leaf. So we sprayed with diazinon. You can also use malathion. These are kinds of material which have a very short life and can be used on edible food if you wait for the waiting period of about a week after spraying. Now, all of the new foliage is perfectly clean, so we know that the insecticide did work and our spinach is nearly ready for harvesting. Now, as I cross this garden, I would like to show you some of the other things coming along. This is early marvel pea in full blossom. Behind it you see Alaska pea. Again, I think we might be picking some of that in roughly a week or 10 days. And over in here we have a number of things to show you. First of all, you know, you've heard me talk about alpine strawberries for a long time. Well, they're small but very sweet, just beginning to blossom, and this little fellow will blossom and fruit all summer long, and what's more, the plants will live for years. They'll eventually get about a foot tall and cover themselves with berries. Next to it, you see we have some beets coming along and carrots, which we've thinned out. Some endive coming along in here. Next to it is a row of kohlrabi. Then you see we have beans, great quantities of beans in a wide row, and I expect some real production out of a row such as that. Don't be stingy when you plant your beans and peas. They are in for a short time, produce, then you take them out and you plant another crop right in the row. Well, let's go over and look at our perennial garden, because that's where the action is this time of year. The first plant I want to show you, of course, is not a perennial but a rose bush. See how clean that foliage is? And that's because we have used a combination of insecticide and fungicide to keep the bugs from getting. You can't wait until after the damage shows. That's too late. Right in front of it, we have the little plant called Edelweiss. A lot of people say, well, gee, that's an alpine, isn't it, from Switzerland? Yes, but it will grow right in your garden in this country, just beginning to open up. Here we have iris, the bearded iris, nearly gone by. In a short time, I'll show you how to divide this plant, which should be done every 3 years, show you how to do it so that you get the good, strong growth out of it. There's a lupin just beginning to make its way through. These taller plants in here are garlic, beginning to ripen, and we'll be pulling these garlic and see the big bulbs coming from that later on this summer. Now, you might not think it's such a good idea to mix your vegetables and flowers, but I'm going to put a clump of rhubarb right in here, handsome foliage, and you can see that we get some pretty good sized stems out of there. Lovely red rhubarb. You can mix the flowers and vegetables. I don't know if you call this a vegetable or a fruit, but rhubarb is mighty great. At this time of year and for weeks, well, in months from now, we'll continue to have a new crop of flax. That's plain F-L-A-X, that blossom all summer long. This lovely sky blue flowers, certainly a handsome perennial. And this combination next to it are chives. The chives and the flax together look very nice. Both are just as hardy as a rock. In behind, let me show you this foxglove. Now, foxglove is a biennial. And when we talk of a biennial, we talk of a plant whose seeds must be planted 1 year to get blossoms the second year, and then the plant dies. So if we want foxgloves next year, then we'll have to sow some seeds this June, carry the plants through the winter so they blossom next spring. Sometimes, fortunately for gardeners, the foxglove seedlings are apt to come up all by themselves, and you get even more of them. Just beginning to see a painted daisy opening up here. And we move back. Oh, here's a plant I want you to see. This is a bleeding heart called luxuriant. Dark pink, will blossom all summer. Sun or shade, which is a very interesting thing to know. sort of a ferny foliage. Very, very handsome plant. Luxuriant. There are several varieties, different shades of pink and white. That happens to be a real nice one. Then down in here is a type of wormwood, an artemisia called silver mound. Very fragrant foliage, and you can see what a nice edging plant that makes, just as soft as feathers. We have a number of other things coming along which you'll see as they grow, but here is the type of thing which I like to show in a garden. Now, this is a little type of dianthus or pink known as beatrice. Well, you see what's happened to beatrice. We have a dark pink and a light pink flower growing on the same stem. Well, you can imagine how a plant breeder would grab onto something like this, because this is a mutation. This is the type of thing that he would try to propagate vegetatively, or lacking that, he would get some seeds coming from this to see if he couldn't have a dark pink one just like the pale pink one. And again, this is a very fragrant flower. This is a dianthus called beatrice. And one of my favorite in the hardy perennials is the Siberian iris. Very great flower, lives for years, many shades of blue and snowy white. Back in here, we're going to grow some herbs next week. You can see my dill coming along in here. But this is what I really want to show you in this direction. The size of this asparagus. Here's this asparagus already taller than I am. And last year, at this time, this is what it looked like. Just growing in the bottom of the trench, a little thing about a foot tall or 18 inches, skinny. Doesn't have much promise, but that's what a year's growth will do when you put some compost underneath it. Well, I'm glad I mentioned that word compost, because that's been one of the big questions that we get. How do you make compost? How do you make a composter? Well, this is our 3-bin composter. I'm going to show you just how to make one in a moment, but let me show you how you make the compost itself. Well, this is the kind of stuff you're apt to get. Orange peelings, dead geranium flowers, an old lettuce leaf, all kinds of things that come out of the garden that are organic in nature. Put them in layers, about 6 to 8 inches deep, concave layers. That is, hollow in the center. Then, because the bacteria that cause the decay need a lot of nitrogen, I like to scatter on here a commercial fertilizer such as 10-10-10. Now that first 10 stands for nitrogen, and that will feed the bacteria that cause this to decay. And finally, we take a little soil, cover each layer with about 1 inch of soil, like that. And very soon that will start to decay, and we'll end up with a beautiful compost. Now, in this particular bin, we have the raw compost. Here we have the compost, which has been going now for several months. It's pretty brown and decaying quite well. And then this empty bin over here is where we took the compost this spring, which we used under our plants. But now we come to making the composter. This is a good Saturday afternoon project for some of you gardeners, and you will be so pleased if you do it. The basic component of the composter is a square frame, 3 feet square. You know, you can cut one of these out of one 12-foot, 2 by 3 inch piece of lumber. I use this dimension because it's easy to handle, easy to get into with a shovel. The wire, again, is a welded wire, 2 by 2.5 inch mesh. It comes in a 3-foot width, so there's a minimum of cutting, you see, and on no waste at all. So we begin by making 4 pieces like this. And then we lay stringers on the ground, 2 9-foot stringers, and it is upon these that the various frames themselves will be put together. Now they can either be nailed down, or as we're doing here, we put them in with bolts so we can take them apart again if we want to. So you take a Just take a galvanized bolt like that and put it in. And you see we have one frame. There's this 3 by 3 by 3. Gives us 2 bins. Now I'll come back here and we'll take a 4th one like that. This again, we simply drive the pin through and we have the 4th one. Of course, it's just temporary. We'll have to nail this or bolt this together securely before it's ready to use. Also, I must tell you that this lumber will be painted with cuprinol. That will keep it from decaying. It'll last for many, many years. Don't use creosote because that's very toxic to plants, but cuprinol is great. Across the back side, we'll again have a piece of this 3-foot wire. Again, no cutting except the ends. This not only will allow the good air circulation, but this will help to reinforce the whole structure to keep it from wobbling when we're through. Well, let me show you how we hold the material into each bin. We begin like this, with pieces of 1 by 8 lumber. Just plain 1 by 8 boards, cut to fit into slots. And they go right down like that. I should mention that right on the top of each one of these, I've put a staple. You could put a nail or something. The idea is to have a spacer so that air can get through the front of this compartment just as well as through the sides. Another one, we can build this right up to the top. Now, how do we hold these sides in? This is maybe one of the crucial things to notice in making a compost bin. This was a 2 by 3 piece of lumber in which we cut a groove, so we have a sort of a T-shaped piece, if you look at it from that direction. A T-shaped piece, and each slot will, each piece of wood will slide into these slots. Now here, all we do with this, take it over here on the front of one of these, tap it in like that. You see, we're then ready to slide another board in here, and we go on. Now, we're coming back to our composter and how to make compost all summer, but this is a pretty good idea. I'll give you one other idea. Suppose your compost bin is a little bit wobbly. What you can do is to drive a stake down, or you can drive a stake at an angle so that the bin won't slide back and forth. You really don't need any other support than that. And this is one of your greatest investments in gardening. Now, I said we're going to talk about rhododendrons, and I want to talk about this plant because this is a Native American broad-leafed flowering shrub. It will grow in all except the very coldest and the very warmest parts of the country. The wild plants from which this hybrid was developed grow in the Appalachian Mountains. This plant is now coming into blossom, and you might wonder whether or not this is a good time to move it, but it is. Not only can you choose the color that fits into your planting, but it also gives you a chance to get them at their peak of growth, and they'll start right in growing from here. They need an acid soil. My soil mixture here is half peat moss. The real trick in planting is this. Put a stick across the hole. Make it at least 6 inches bigger all around. Put a stick across like that so that you will know the height to set the ball. Never plant a rhododendron too deeply. Then take the burlap such as this, simply loosen it, bury it down in the sides of the hole like that. Put the burlap out of sight. Now, if it's plastic burlap, take it off because the plastic will not decay. Now, we'll go all the way around with this mixture of peat moss and soil. Firm it in well, as you've seen me do before on these various plants. Firm that soil in with your foot. That's the way I like to do it. Now I want to come from here. Of Go right around like this. Then, of course, we'll make a little trench and come here and fill that in with water. Now we come to one of the crucial things I promised you, and that we would make a layer how to propagate a rhododendron. Take this low branch, take off the old leaves like that, cut just a little piece of the bark from the bottom, put in some rooting powder, just dust it on like this, and then bring your soil over like so. Take 2 stakes like this. Get the hose out of the way. Take 2 stakes and we'll push them in the ground to pin that down. So we'll put it in like that and pin that fellow right down there. A year from now, that will be rooted, and we'll have a nice little plant that can be separated and can be cut off and made to grow any place in the garden. Remember, rhododendron likes a sunny place or a shady place, will blossom more freely in the sun than in the shade. While I'm passing, you might take a look at the cauliflower and the broccoli plants coming along. We had a little root maggot on that and adds it some more diazinon. Now let's go in the greenhouse. I'll answer a few questions. My first one is not a question, but a viewer tip sent in by Francis Shea. And he said, why don't you use a milk carton if you want to make a collar to keep the cutworms away? Well, that's just a perfectly great idea. Of course, this is wax paper, goes right over the top of the plants just like that, keeps the cutworms at bay. Now, a question. First one is an easy one. How do you root pussy willows? Well, just stick them in moist soil and step aside. They'll make roots all by themselves in just about 10 days' time. Can I root the cuttings I'm getting from trimming my azaleas? No, do as I did with the rhododendron. Pin it down onto some soil and you'll get a layer started. Very difficult to grow azaleas from cuttings. Well, already I'm out of time. That's all I have time for today. But on my next program, I'm going to plant some cucumbers, peppers, melons, squashes, and eggplants. Those are plants that like warm weather. I'm Jim Crockett in Crockett's Victory Garden. I hope you enjoy the program every week.